Hello, WordPress people. Welcome back to the WPMRR WordPress Business Podcast. I'm Christie.
And I'm Joe.
And you're listening to the WordPress Business Podcast. What's going on this week, Joe? Joe, I think I messed that up.
Yeah, that's okay. It was going to be fine, but you can do it over. You add an extra business in there, which is good. Extra businessing. Who doesn't want extra businessing? That's excellent.
Maybe let's just keep going then. How are you?
I am excellent. We got a double business podcast this week. Yeah, I'm good. We've given updates in the past. Like, what's your update? Yeah, just another week in COVID world. But my week's a little bit different this week. I am traveling down to Texas with Sterling and Mo, and we are doing as safe as possible family visit down there. Sterling's done a ton of research on how to keep ourselves as safe as possible, and like planes circulating all the air in the entire cabin every 3 minutes, and like all this stuff. And so we'll be as safe as possible. We have, their grandson is here and they're aching to see him. And of course we want to follow all the protocols as much as possible. But we feel at the same time that, we are not, putting ourselves out there at a huge risk, or anybody out there at a huge risk, as long as we're being very safe about the way we're traveling. We were going to fly on Saturday actually, but we changed our flight from Saturday to Friday because we bought Southwest flights, which you can change pretty easily. We changed to a Friday night flight because it was like less than half full, and the Saturday flight was actually a fuller flight, which I was kind of surprised about. I was like, oh, some flights are full. I guess some people are flying still, but yeah. So we're flying on a flight that's not packed. And Sterling has like all these, like, we won't use public bathrooms, only family bathrooms, because like there's something about the flushing of the toilets that like sends air around and spreads stuff. So yeah, we're pretty ready for it. And honestly, it'll be nice, I think, to be down in Texas. We're going down for 2 weeks. And it'll be a little bit of a nice change of pace for me. So that's what's up with me this week. Just getting a little work done and then preparing to fly Friday night. So yeah, that's me. How about you?
Oh my gosh. That's crazy. So you're flying tomorrow basically?
Oh yeah. It's
tomorrow
Thursday.
Night.
Yeah. Tomorrow night.
Whoa. That's soon. Okay.
Yep.
I mean, we are starting the reopening phase tomorrow as well. I read that in the news this morning.
Yeah, DC is technically this like phase 1 of reopening is beginning, right, which I think is like parks and stuff. It's not, and I think maybe some businesses at like 25% capacity and stuff. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's starting, and we'll see how it goes. I like to be able to trust in, people in positions to make these decisions, that they're making good decisions. Doesn't always happen, but hopefully.
Our local government is good, but hopefully. Well, best of luck staying sanitized during your trip tomorrow night. I totally get it, though. You have a cute, adorable little newborn. Of course, his grandparents want to meet him. And, I think that if you've done the research, and I'm sure that the airports are also taking precautions, knowing that the flights are full means that, hey, other people are doing this. People need to go places, so it makes sense. Best of luck, though. I will not be traveling. I will be once again inside of my small studio apartment for yet another weekend. But I am looking forward to the slow reopening of our world. And, I think that to a degree, I've given up hoping for a quick return to normal. I just don't think it's coming. I used to think that once a date was over, things were going to reopen and we were all going to go out. And now I'm sort of realizing that until there's a vaccine, things might open, but they're going to reopen after being shut down to prepare for operating in an environment where there's a deadly virus running around. And that's scary. That feels a little apocalyptic movie. But, we got to do our best and protect our communities. So things that are new with me, I don't know, absolutely nothing. I got an iPhone. I'm really excited about that.
Oh, like you switched from like Android to iPhone?
I switched from Android to iPhone.
I can text you with blue text.
Yes, you can text me with blue text. I'm very psyched about it. I've been thinking about it for a long time. I've had an iPhone before, I was a big fan of the iPhone SE. I think it's sort of I'm the target market for that device. You know what I mean? It's nice and fast and has all the fun, cool iPhone features, but sort of makes a lot of sacrifices to be in a budget range. But don't really feel like sacrifices. And for me, who has a whole bunch of other very expensive Apple devices, having an Apple device that integrates with my very expensive Apple devices, but doesn't necessarily have all the bells and whistles of every single phone works really well for me. Because all the bell and whistle stuff I do on my iPad or on my iMac. So having a iPhone SE, the second generation one, I bought it once they announced it, and I finished setting it up last night. So I'm very pumped about that, but that's about the most exciting thing that's happened to me in the last 5 weeks, you know?
That's a big change. Technology, new technology.
Yeah. And it's a big purchase, you know, devices like that. So I'm really excited. I think it'll be fun.
Yeah, very cool. Well, iPhone stuff's pretty intuitive. Like it'll probably take you a couple weeks to get used to the new UI and know how to do certain stuff. But maybe when DC starts reopening, we can hang out and have like an iPhone teaching and learning session. Here's how you use this thing.
That would be awesome. And some iPhone photo taking sessions, because definitely this phone has a much nicer camera than the old Google Pixel I had.
Yeah. The newest Google Pixels have pretty good cameras, and the new iPhones do too. I thought a lot of the new like premium flagship phones all have like pretty premium cameras. So
yeah, they do.
Nice snaps and photos. Okay. Well, so we have some like big news today. We're not, or today is a Q&A episode. So we're going to answer some questions from listeners and some folks in WPMRR. I know it's going to be excellent. These are some of the best episodes, most fun to do too. But before we dive into that, we are doing a little episode 100 celebration. Wow. Yeah. We were talking offline about like what we wanted to do this episode on, and we were like, do we want to do like a review of like 100 episodes, or do we just kind of want to like do a regular episode? And we kind of decided, let's just do a regular episode. You know, it's we'll in the pre Q&A section, we'll just give ourselves a little shout out, a little pat on the back for me. You get a pat on the back too, Christy. We get collective pats on the backs. And I mean, it's been an awesome time building this podcast and getting to do it. Like, you know, we've talked to some cool people. Honestly, like we've gotten a lot more FaceTime in than we would have in the past year and a half had we not done this podcast, Christy. Like we would not be as good friends also, like if we had not done this podcast. So like that maybe is the biggest thing I'm thankful for. Like we get to like talk every week. Like it's just an excuse to get to talk every week. And so that to me is awesome. So thanks for doing this with me. It's been fun.
I totally agree with that. I'm so glad that we have developed a better working relationship and friendship over this podcast. And I just think back to how when we started and you sent me that email asking me to be on the podcast, I thought it was a mass mailer, so I didn't answer.
Yeah, gotcha.
And then Joe was like,
I asked 100 people and only Christie said yes.
No. That's how the podcast started. I just immediately assumed you were very popular. You know what I mean? You have popular vibes. So I was like, I'll get to this mass mailer later. And then Joe's like, Christy, you didn't answer my email.
Hey, Slack message. Christy, I asked you very specifically, and I want you to do with me. Okay, fine. Yeah. I just bug people until they like do stuff with me. That's
the origin of the podcast was that peak awkward Christy moment. There's many of those in my life.
Those are the best moments, and it's good to reflect on that too, because I mean, you know, this is like one of the more listened to podcasts in the WordPress space, and it came from nothing. It came from, hey, you want to do this podcast? Sure, it sounds cool. Like, you're cool, I'm cool. We could do a cool podcast together. Like, we're good at talking. We could do a podcast. And then 100 episodes later, like, it seems like we just were at episode 1 yesterday. Like, it's pretty crazy. That's episode 100. So, we won't do a whole episode on it, but I think it's just nice to put it out there. I mean, pretty crazy that we've gotten to this point, and I guess here's to 100 more eepisodes. I'm excited we'll do something special for 200. 200's like, a good number of podcasts get to 100 episodes. Oh, well, let's get to 200. Let's see what happens then.
All right, here's my dream, okay? I'm going to speak it into existence. I want to do one of those live podcast recordings that people go to, not just
Ooh,
at a WordCamp or something, but like have an event, you know? Have a
yep.
WPMRR party and an audience and go full on talk show host.
Ooh,
That'd
I
be
like
fun.
that. I like that. I've
Yeah.
done some. What's the NPR show? The Wait Don't Tell Me. I went to like a
Ah,
live
yeah. Uh-huh.
recording of that here in like DC area, and that was a lot of fun. So it'd be super cool if we could
Like
do that.
that.
Maybe
That's gonna
when
be my
WordCamps
goal.
come back, we could like apply to like a WordCamp and do the 200 episode at like, one of the bigger regional WordCamps. That'd be fun.
When WordCamps are a thing again, I would love to like maybe organize a post WordCamp event that's like live
Oh yeah.
taping or something like that.
Ah,
Oh,
that
that'd be
would be
cool.
cool.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I like
Two
these.
years from
Expect the notes
now.
extent. Yeah. Right. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Um, All right, cool. Let's dive into the episode today. We both got a hard stop in like 35 minutes, so we're gonna like run through questions. But if we don't get to all of them, then hey, we'll do another Q&A episodes soon. So,
Okay, now this is good advice, right? Not bad advice, because I still really want to do bad
oh yeah,
advice with Christie Chirino.
bad advice. 5 cents. Um, I think as long as you before each answer clarify whether this is good or bad advice, then we'll be good to go. So your choice, dealer's choice.
Perfect.
And we've got some hosting questions in here too. So actually, like perfect for you, and I'll probably not know good answers and then chime in with bad advice. First piece of advice here. Hello there. I'd like to offer 3 hosting and maintenance plans for clients, and I'm very tempted to use Kinsta as a hosting provider. However, I wonder if it's not overkill for my smaller sites. Would it be better, or excuse me, would I be better off taking shared hosting for those clients? Is it just not worth the hassle? I mean, is saving a little bit of money there worth it, or should I keep things nice and efficient with one great hosting provider? Thanks for any thought and insight. So, I mean, this question was about Kinsta hosting, but I mean, the real question is smaller sites that I'm running for clients. Do I want to spend more on a higher quality host, or is shared hosting maybe okay for those clients? I think this is a perfect question for you, and then maybe I'll chime in as well, but you probably get this question a lot.
I need so much more information to answer that question helpfully, though. And yeah, we can use Kinsta as an example of a placeholder of, do you pay the premium for managed WordPress hosting, right? And I mean, I'm obviously biased, but I'm like, yes, when things go wrong, you're going to be very upset that you're on that VPS running a bunch of WordPress websites and you're completely responsible for all of them. But I spend all day and all night, not all night, just all day, working on a managed WooCommerce solution that's built on top of a managed WordPress solution exactly for this issue, right? And the reality outside of the work that I do is that I'm sure that there are instances in which it makes sense to maybe put your higher traffic, higher demand clients on managed WordPress, managed WooCommerce hosting, depending on what they're running, so that you
Yeah.
can have access to all those additional features and benefits and whatever Kinsta offers. And then maybe have a one VPS where you sort of put on all of the sites that, are local, don't get that much traffic, our portfolio sites, whatever, right? I know that as a web professional in general, that's sort of how I operate in terms of the access of 2 accounts that I have, right? But with that said, like, I would question why you're not just working with clients that are worth managed WordPress, right? Why do
Yep.
we have clients on a VPS? Why is it that the price difference isn't a completely completely surmountable, inconsequential thing? Because ultimately, I don't know exactly what Kinsta costs, but Nexus Managed WordPress starts at $19 a month. Managed WooCommerce at Nexus starts at $19 a month. I'm pretty sure Kinsta is something similar. I think it's like 29 or something like that. So if a VPS is something like 10, or if you're looking at cheaper shared hosting, which is maybe something like, I don't know, $3 a site or something like that, like, why is $15 a month a make it or break it? Why is it that $15 a month makes saving that amount of money makes it okay to not have any access to WordPress core support, to application
Yeah.
support, to potentially the different little bundles and things that different managed WordPress plans come with, right? Sometimes they come with premium products like Nexus Managed WordPress comes with iTheme Security Pro, it comes with Beaver Builder, it comes with things like that. It just doesn't seem to me like there are a lot of arguments for that particular cost cutting measure, the cost versus benefit, or the potential risk versus benefit doesn't seem worth it to me. Again, understanding that I'm sure that there is a strategy in which you can have the bulk of your low traffic sites on something cheaper, and then the sort of three big clients that need attention and need the 24/7 support on something more premium like Insta or Nexus or WP Engine or whatever.
Yeah. I think you answered that pretty comprehensively. I don't have too much to add. I think you're totally right. It's like if you're deciding between those two things, I think you're probably asking the wrong question. I think the right question would probably be, or the right thing to think about is, like you should probably be able to sell managed hosting over like cheaper hosting, and pass that cost off to your client. And it's not that much more of a cost anyway. It's totally worth the investment to them. And that should be like part of the sales process, whether it's in your proposal or how you're talking to them on a discovery call. It should be pretty easy to like upsell that fully managed WordPress hosting, especially if it's a serious website. Like, why would you want to build like a website for $10,000 and then put it on like $3 a month hosting? Probably
Yes.
not the right move.
No.
And so, yeah, that's something I think about. And also, like, if your client is bulking at that, then yeah, like looking and making sure you're attracting like higher quality customers is always like, a big priority. Obviously, when you're starting off, maybe you're working with some lower quality customers, but as you move along, you want to be targeting people who know that they want to invest in better infrastructure for the long term. This question also just may not be about like selling it to clients. It also just may be about like me as the freelancer, or me as the person managing this website. Like, is it worth the hassle or is it worth it for me to like invest more in my business and doing a fully managed setup than like cheap hosting? I mean, it's kind of a short-term, long-term thing. Also, it's like if you go with like shared hosting, you're definitely going to have to like probably upgrade people in like a year. It's going to cause you, 20, 30 hours of BS and bullshit work to do over the year. Like, is that really worth like not paying $150 a year for the fully managed version? Maybe that's like $500 a year for 3 sites or whatever. In my opinion, very much no. Like I'm not personally like I don't know everything about hosting. I know like the basics, but like I'm not a super hosting expert. I'd rather the host like fully manage that for me. So like I'd trust like a Nexus or a Liquid Web, like to like, oh, you guys know WooCommerce hosting. Like, yeah, like you guys handle the scaling stuff when I've got 100 people on my website checking out at once. So yeah, I think in most cases it's worth it, but I think you're also right. Like I'd love to sit down with this person and get a little bit more information about like exactly who their clients are and help them dig it out a little bit more. But this question, by the way, was sent in by Laurent. So Laurent, thanks for the question. It was a good one. Hope that answers it for you. Anything final to add, Christie, or you want to move to the next one?
Yeah, I think the final sentence I might add there is that there is maybe an existing lingering thought that managed WordPress hosting is considerably more expensive than something like shared hosting or putting a bunch of WordPress sites on a VPS or something like that. But in the beginning of 2020, and this is something that I know because I look at this every single day, right? We saw a lot of the managed WordPress companies plummet their prices, Liquid Web included. Why? Because we're trying to compete in an even more competitive, larger market. There's more and more potential for units. There's more and more of an addressable market every single day, right? More people are getting online. And then right now, it's just up and to the right. And so I think maybe there is a reservation there because you're thinking, oh, it's going to be like $50 per site, or I can just have everything on shared hosting. And that's just not the case at this point. With Nexus, I think if you're looking at multiple site managed WordPress plans, the 5-site plan is like $79. I mean, it's not insurmountable, and the difference in expertise that you're getting and the number of things that you can hand off to people are so valuable, right? Like even if you're building sites for people, something that a good managed WordPress host will do is give you the ability to have different kinds of users on the account. So you can be the administrative user, but your client can also have a limited user profile. And that means that if they have a problem in the middle of the night, they're not calling you. And that alone can be worth, $15 a month or whatever. But yeah,
Yeah.
let's move on.
Cool. Let's do it. Okay. Next question. Hello. I'm wondering what are others using for support ticketing relating specifically to content update requests. So I guess it's just like a software question. I'd like to streamline mine for future growth. Not excited about the current setup. I would greatly appreciate any input. So I guess this question is kind of asking about what ticketing software folks are using for support. This is from Greenix Media asking the question. Christie, what do you use for support over
So I don't think they're
Nexus?
asking about support ticketing. I think they're asking about ticketing and request tracking about content updates. So when you see things in your KB, when you see things in your website, how do you track the different things that you notice need to change? And honestly, this is such a good question. And let me tell you that Liquid Web, a very large company, has not cracked this. It is so hard. And I have worked however long I've worked on this kind of thing now, and I have used so many different strategies for this. Asana boards, Google form that feeds into a request tracker. We have used Basecamp. We have used everything to figure out a good and easy way to track and execute on our content update requests. We have tried outsourcing the whole thing. We have tried everything in the different places that I've worked, and it's a really interesting challenge. With that said, I do believe that the two key things for tracking this kind of thing are, one, easy input. You need something where it's very easy to create a new problem when you notice it from whatever device you're on, from whatever site you're on, right? So things that have browser extensions, things that have mobile apps, software that has easy entry to input would probably be my first consideration. And then after that, you want to use what your team will use. That's really it. What's the best offer? Well, Basecamp has this, this, and that feature, and Asana has this and that feature, and Trello has this and that feature. It really, they all do the same thing. You want to use what your team's going to use. That's my 2 cents on that one.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I'm kind of glad to hear that Liquid Web has not quite cracked this yet, because we for sure have not. It's tough. It's more like, I feel like this is a better question for someone who runs more of a pure SaaS company. This is something we want to do better for, just like general content updates. So like, because we have such a huge library of content at this point, it's hard to keep everything up to date, not just like the content and the advice, but like the screenshots and like everything in content. How do we keep everything updated? One thought I have is trying to just create like something that's user generated, that's super easy and minimalist and easy for everybody to use. I mean, you kind of said this, but it's like, if something's complex and complicated, like I'm not going to use it, and it's just going to like probably blow up. So trying to find like the easiest, most streamlined possible way to do it, is usually going to be the best route. Yeah, I don't know if I have any great advice for this, but I think probably some of the things you actually like mentioned here would probably work better for a smaller company or a smaller agency even. Maybe companies that get like 5 or 10 pieces of feedback a month. Companies that scale to hundreds, that may be a different monster. I think also at the end of the day, it may just require like, one, someone's time just to figure it out, and two, maybe just someone's time dedicated to going through all that and organizing it, and maybe trying to create a more streamlined process. So if you're like a small agency or something, you may have to yourself just take 5 hours one day and just like organize everything you've gotten in the last month. You may have to, if you're a bigger company, you may have to say, hey, someone's time is dedicated 20% to like this feedback thing. Like we just have to like dedicate the time to get it done. So that's a solution. May not be the most elegant one, but just spending time brute forcing it. can work.
I think the last thing I would add to that before we move on would be just an appreciation for how hard this question actually is and how the seemingly simple thing is something that a lot of companies struggle with. Like I said, I just got an iPhone. And so I've been looking up how to do new things on my new iPhone and how to have it do those new things well with my iMac and my iPad Pro. And let me tell you, there's a lot of outdated documentation on Apple's website. And if Apple's struggling, it's okay if you're struggling too.
Yeah, this is not solely a problem of small companies that just don't have maybe the manpower to do this as efficiently as they want to. Like, a lot of companies have issues figuring this out. Yeah, I think there's probably there's room here for like software maybe to be created. Maybe there's a new SaaS company that's really needs to bridge this gap around users needing updates to content and generating that and organizing it in a way that allows your team to implement it easily. There are things like on one other quick thing I'm thinking about is like Hotjar has this like it's a little sidebar thing. I forget what it says on there. I think you can customize what it says, but it says like feedback or something.
Feedback tool. Yeah.
Feedback tool. Yeah,
we used to have that on calderafarms.com, and it would ask you for feedback after checkout. And then we would get that feedback, and I had somebody coming in and copy and pasting the stuff we would get into a Google Sheet. So
into a Google Sheet, right?
Yep.
So that's a manual way to do it, but hey, that's a good start, I think. Maybe like using Zapier to like send some of that information into like a Google form or something, and then you can actually manipulate the data. I don't know. That sounds like pretty like that's probably what I would do if I was using it that way. If I wanted a little feedback thing on my website, which I don't know if I want that right now, but that's yes, that's a good way to do it. All right, sweet. Anything else to add, or should we move on?
Let's move on.
Moving on. Client reports, monthly or weekly? We send them out monthly, but I see WP Buffs does weekly. Any pros, cons? Thanks. I'll answer this question too, but you from like I guess like web hosting background, but also from a like, ran Caldera for years, wanting to give feedback to clients. What did you prefer? Did you prefer weekly, or did you prefer
so
monthly?
much more information about this to answer this question. And I know that's a cheap answer, but I really do. It's like, what industry are you in? There are some products that do not need to be sending client reports at all. There are some agencies that should probably be sending a monthly report about just what you accomplished and what you did and where your billable hours went. I'm sure clients appreciate that.
I have a little bit of background information. It is a WordPress maintenance and support company.
Got it. Okay. I think that might be a better question for you then.
Yeah. I didn't want to like take over the answer. I wanted to give you a chance to answer too. Yeah, it's a good question. I think it is, again, like somewhat of a cheap answer, but it's totally dependent on your clients and what they want. We have clients that probably want the weekly report because they want to stay up to date on things. We have clients who want to receive monthly reports because they like don't want to receive an email every week. Probably we have a lot of clients who don't read the reports. I guess I'm probably assuming there, but I would assume most people probably like get the reports. How many people actually click through and read them? I don't know. Probably not all of them. I think that the reason that I like to do a weekly email, so we do weekly emails, which Danielle here mentioned. I like weekly because we send emails out every Monday morning to all of our clients with the report of like all the updates we did last week to their plugins and the security scans and speed scans and, uptime monitoring scores and all that stuff. And I like sending that out every Monday morning because I want all our clients to like feel like their website is top of mind. Like, this is a high priority for me. And when you get an email on Monday morning, like that's like how you start your week. And so, yeah, it kind of makes your website top of mind for them. So I like sending it out weekly for that reason. We actually have certain clients who tell us like, I don't need a weekly report, just send it to me on like the first of every month. And so we just adjust their settings in our software and send them monthly reports. So it's kind of customized, but like that would be like one reason we like to send weekly. It's also just like higher touch point, which usually if I had to lean one way or the other, there's a lot of context like we've kind of said here, but if I had to lean one way or the other, I'd probably want to lean towards higher touch point, because the more positive touch points you have with your customers or clients, more often than not, the lower the churn is going to be and the higher the lifetime value of that customer is going to be. You're going to be less likely to cancel a subscription if you have positive interaction after positive interaction after positive interaction. If you look at your report every week, it's like, oh, here's all the stuff they did. Like, guess I can't cancel. Like, do I want to do all these updates? Like, do I want to monitor the uptime? Oh, I don't want to do that. Okay. Oh, and it's like had 100% uptime this week. Well, okay. I guess keeping it for ever, hopefully. So, I think that having more positive touch points, as many as possible, is a good thing.
I will say that from a customer perspective, right, as someone who has been a customer of a maintenance company, I like what you said about options. I would love that my account by default sends me weekly reports, and then I can opt into, hey, I don't need these, it's fine, give me monthly, or give me none, just don't email me, I have too much email. Yep. I'm sitting on 85 emails, I'm very stressed out about it.
Yeah, it's always good to give options and get options. Shout out to the Get Options podcast. You said options, and I like totally like came in with the Get Options podcast. What's up, Kyle? What's up, Adam? All right, sweet. Danielle, thanks for the question. Good one. All right, let me mark that one as complete. It is, we got about 15 minutes left, so maybe let's do one more question, then we'll wrap up. We'll save the other questions for another Q&A episode.
Love it.
This is another hosting one, so good for you, and I will chime in as well. The question is, how difficult is it for a hacker who compromised one cPanel account to gain access to the other cPanel accounts on the same server? What can I do to make it harder? This is an interesting question coming off the back of the first question we did here, which was like, this is another risk of shared hosting, is that you're hosting alongside 20,000 other sites on the same server, potentially. Like, there is possibility for someone to gain access to cPanel and gain access to like everybody else's cPanel. So Christie is a hosting person who does not
go in on this question.
Yeah. You can. I can already see your willingness to want to attack this question. So
I'm like a cat. I have like a ready to pounce position, and people know it,
And just quickly before you answer the question, this is sent in by Nate. So Nate, thanks for the question. It's a good one.
Cool. Thank you for the question, Nate. This is such a good question. And there's also so much to it, right? All of these questions have a lot of different components to it. But the first thing that comes to mind to me is, well, how difficult is it for a hacker to compromise another cPanel account? How easy did you make it to compromise the first one? If your cPanel account was easily compromisable because you used insecure security practices, because your password was your dog's name, and because you weren't mindful about using a password manager, and because you also weren't mindful about your hosting password management, and because I don't know what else you could be doing, but because you just were, I don't want to use the word careless, but that's the word that comes to mind about your own security management because you responded to a phishing attack. I don't know, right? Then it's going to be just as easy to gain access to the other cPanel accounts on the same server, no matter how technically difficult or not difficult it is to do something, right? Like, number one thing about security and web hosting security is that it's primarily driven by human behavior. We can take on a lot of different precautions to protect you from malicious attacks, but we can't stop you from giving up your information or protecting your information poorly, so on and so forth. So that's the first thing that comes to mind when I see that. And then when it comes to the actual technological aspect of it, I wonder, it really does depend on how your host implements cPanel, right? And then it depends on what you mean by compromise. Like, if you are talking about a cPanel account getting hacked, and then what's the hacker doing on that account? Are we attacking it with insane amounts of load and making it do crazy stuff? Then yeah, it's going to bring down the whole server and all the other cPanel accounts on that server, and it's all going to be compromised because one thing was compromised, right? Especially if you're operating under a completely sort of shared server and then limited server resources situation. It's all going to go down. If one thing has been compromised and then the other cPanel account, we're worried about that same hacker being able to get access to the same account and also upload malicious files or whatever. Um, Again, depends on the configuration and how sort of FTP settings are set up and things like that. Among the cPanel accounts, I'm not a cPanel expert or security expert, but it's absolutely possible, which then brings me to the last nuance of this, which is why are you
Hmm.
worrying about this? You could pay an additional $7 a month, and this problem could be a support ticket, right? You fire up an email from your iPhone while drinking your morning coffee, and you're like, hey, why was my cPanel account hacked? And then again, I'm like, the majority of sort of managed WordPress and definitely managed WooCommerce are not even using cPanel anymore, right? With
Right.
the cPanel increases, um, the cPanel price increases, a lot of different web hosting companies chose different vendors, or even rolled out their own that have different security practices and account for this sort of very 10 years ago type problem. So when you're concerned about this, I'm like, oh my gosh, pay for a better host,
Hmm.
right? Pay for managed WordPress so that on whoever, right, like Nexus, Kinsta, WP Engine, all of them would include within their scope of support to identify, protect against, and clean up malicious scripts. And so I'm very much like, oh my God, what can you do to make it harder? Is the last section of this question. This takes an adjustment in thinking, but this is so not a problem that you should be worrying about in 2020. It's Security is complicated. It is an ever ongoing and active process that you constantly have to stay monitoring, and you can pay someone $20 a month to worry about it for you. And when we're talking about building businesses that have recurring revenue, a key part of doing that successfully is realizing that our job is to do what we're good at and outsource everything else and sell the things that we're paying for plus our time for more money than they cost.
Cool. I don't think I could answer that much better, or add much to it. I was like, I'm just gonna let Christie nail this one because I know you've got a good answer.
It's honestly
Yeah.
so crazy how much I've learned about web hosting in the last year, though. I'll add that for the listeners, right? That I started working at Liquid Web March of last year. We're recording this May 2020, almost June, and I started in March 2019. And before then, I understood web hosting like a consumer, and I knew that with this new job, I was being hired for my knowledge of WordPress and the plugin ecosystem and WooCommerce, and that I would have to learn the nuances of what lies beneath that surface.
Yeah.
And it's super complicated, and there's so much history. But I tell people who are working in that same sphere where they're thinking about WordPress and up in the stack, pay someone else to worry about this. There's so much going on there. Just pay somebody else to worry about this.
Yeah, as someone who runs a support company, I know for a fact that a lot of people pay us to handle things and take care of things that they don't want to, including security issues. So, I mean, there's a reason that managed hosting has exploded the way that it has. Like I can't remember the last time I talked to a WordPress professional that really considered using shared hosting / cPanel stuff. Like most of the people I talked to, again, I can't remember the last
Ooh,
professional I
I
talked to who
can.
was like, I host everything on shared hosting. I mean, well, actually, like full transparency, I have a shared hosting account where I host like a dinky couple little websites that I don't even run anymore that are they're just kind of out there. But like anything serious that I'm doing or anything like professional that I'm doing is always going to be on fully managed hosting. So I think that this is, I mean, just the fact that that managed hosting has become so big and popular mean, one of the biggest reasons is because it allows you to not have to worry about answering this question anymore. And like me as a business owner, I'm always looking for like ways to like get time back and like not spend time on things that don't matter. And like this is a great way to like not have to spend time on something that doesn't matter or something that doesn't matter, just to like invest in better infrastructure. And this question becomes vacuous. So yeah, that's why I'd answer it.
Agreed.
Cool. All right. I think it's time to wrap up for the day. We have a few more Q&A here. So yeah, we have enough for another episode, which will be fun.
Yes, but I love these Q&A episodes. They're so fun.
Yeah, excellent. Love it. Cool. Let's do our usual wrap up, which we now have to look up in our show notes because we're like still getting back in the swing of things. Cool.
How do we podcast?
If people want to leave a review for the podcast, feel free to go to WPMRR.com/iTunes. Give us a nice little review there. Comment something about this episode or something you like about the podcast. Leave your favorite emoji that's like a totally random one that gets used very infrequently, so it can be like what emoji
the bread.
Oh yeah, I don't think I've ever used bread emoji, but now hey, it's in my head. Bread emoji. Go back and binge some old episodes of the podcast. This is episode 100. You've got literally 99 other episodes to go and listen to, and we've talked about all sorts of things on the podcast, Christie. So I think folks have a specific challenge. They can probably find an episode on something we talked about, right? And if you have more questions, you can
please have more questions.
Yeah, send us more questions. We like doing these episodes, and they're fun. So send us more. yo@WPMRR.com. That's all. Anything else from you, Christie?
Last, but most certainly not least, go to WPMRR.com and check out the course and the series and the content and all the things that have to do with monthly recurring revenue.
WordPress. Monthly. Yeah. Exactly. Cool. We'll be on your podcast players again next Tuesday. Thanks again, Christie. This has been fun. We'll talk next week.
Woo!